Hi, everyone. Dr. Liz here. Welcome to the Hypnotize Me podcast. I'm glad you're here, glad you're listening and learning, and hopefully it will help you with your journey along the way. I am a psychotherapist with a specialty in anxiety, insomnia, and deeper emotional healing. Hypnosis is one of the tools in my toolbox that I use to help people feel better and to help people be better. I do work all over the world. Please feel free to reach out and contact me if you would like some help. I've been an entrepreneur for most of my adult life. Built an award-winning company, sold it, and then focused mainly on my private practice. That gives you a unique perspective, especially my ability to work with people in business at all kinds of levels. Before I go, if you'd like to support the podcast, you can go and subscribe to the newsletter. And you'll get free hypnosis downloads that you can listen to immediately. Another way is to buy one of the downloads that I have for sale. I only have a couple up there, but they're good ones. They've stood the test of time. Or if you'd like to join my Patreon, that's an additional way to support the podcast. I made the decision to not run ads during my podcast because I really do see it as an act of service. I completely respect people who do have ads on their podcast, but it's just not my path. But a great way to show your own support for it is to join the Patreon. There's 3 different levels. At the highest level, you get direct contact with me at an extremely affordable rate. So if you're interested, pop on over there and check it out. All right, everyone, enjoy the episode, and I hope to see you back here soon. Interview today is with Dom the Hypnotist, who's based out of Las Vegas, but works all over the US and the world doing hypnosis for people who want help. He is quite the storyteller, so I think you're really going to enjoy the interview. He tells about how he got started and how hypnosis changed his life and gives plenty of stories about some of the work he has done with people and how it's helped their life. So I hope you enjoy the interview. Let's jump in. Hi, Dom. Welcome to the Hypnotize Me podcast.
Hey, Liz. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start off with your first experience of hypnosis yourself.
Yeah. So I, like many people, I used to think hypnosis was fake. And, I'd watch videos of guys going to people on the street and going, sleep, right? And then thinking, oh, these are actors or whatever. Or I'd watch a stage show and just think, wow, everybody in high school, everybody goes through where they have a hypnotist come to the high school. I wasn't there on that day, so I never got to see that.
Okay.
Well, my first hypnosis experience was when I first moved to Vegas. My fiance and I went to a hypnosis show. And, we're sitting there in the crowd and the guy brings up like 40 people on stage and then kind of tests everybody. And then there's only 8, 9, 10 people left over. And I'm sitting 30, 40, 50 feet away. And I'm looking at these people and I'm going, oh, they're not paid actors. They're really under some type of like spell or trance or I don't know. I was like, is this dark magic? What's going on here? So that was my first experience with hypnosis. And then maybe 2 years after that, my mother called me one day and she goes, oh my God, you got to go to this course. They teach you NLP and then they teach you hypnosis. And I was like, really? She goes, yeah, you can learn in like 2 days. I'm like, no way. I thought it would take months or years to learn hypnosis, right? So it was like a $3,500 course, which is a lot of money for me at the time. So I was like, nah, I don't want to go. Well, she ended up surprising me with a Christmas gift to go to an introductory course, like a 2.5-day weekend course to do hypnosis.
What were you doing at the time?
I was selling insurance, hating my life, ready to just blow my brains out.
Got it.
I did insurance for about 12 years. There was some stuff I did in between there from 18 years old, basically to about 30. And the last few years, I hated my life. I just wanted to be out of it so bad, but I just didn't know what the thing was. I was like, I know there's something better and more out there for me. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, my mom got me this hypnosis course, and I had zero expectation I was going to do this for a living. I just went because she got it for me for free. And I thought, oh, it'll be cool to learn some stuff or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I went to the 2.5 day course, and it changed me so much in that short week. Then on
Mm-hmm.
that Monday, I decided this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I was like, this is it.
Wow.
This is the thing I've been thinking about in the car when I would drive around hating my life. And I
Uh-huh.
finally found it. And long story short, I initially made a goal of 6 months. I wanted to transition over to doing hypnotherapy full time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even care to make the same amount of money. I was happy if I could make like $3,000-$4,000 a month and just pay my bills. I was cool with that.
Yeah.
And I ended up working with about over 100 people within 2 weeks for free, just
Okay.
practicing rapid
Yeah.
inductions and all these different things. And 2 weeks of the day, I woke up, I had 10 appointments to go sell insurance, and my body just would not go. My body is like, nah, man, we're done. So
Mm-hmm.
I called my assistant and I said, hey, tell everybody I'm not coming in today. And I said, that's it. I'm never selling another insurance policy ever again in my life. And so here
Wow.
we are now, 4 years later. There's 17 other people on my team. We got a team of hypnotherapists. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's been great.
Wow. Wow. So you run a group practice then, essentially, 17
Yeah.
hypnotherapists
Yeah. So
in
it's
Las
all
Vegas,
done.
or
No,
where
everything's virtual. So
everything's virtual.
I
Okay.
have a team of people that do the initial consultation,
Mm-hmm.
and they're hypnotherapists as well. They're
Mm-hmm.
not as trained as the hypnotherapists that actually do the work.
Yeah.
So, they're busy with 30, 35 appointments a day,
Uh-huh.
excuse me, a week. So the hypnotherapists that actually do the change work with people. So we bring them in, and basically we do a diagnosis. We're not cars, right? We're
All
people. So
right.
diagnosis on what's going on. And then we kind of tailor a plan based off that to, set them up with a hypnotherapist. So, and everybody's
Mm-hmm.
virtual, I got
Yeah.
people all over the United States. So actually we have
Yeah.
one person in Canada too.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah.
Mhm.
I see it as a real benefit that you can actually do hypnosis all over the US, all over the world. I do too. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
also hold a license in the state of Florida. So if I was just doing psychotherapy, I can only work in Florida. But
Right.
if I'm doing hypnosis, I can work wherever, like all over the US. Like there's one
Right.
state or something. I think Connecticut, I actually had to register or something like that. But it's a
Oh,
real
okay.
advantage that you can do hypnosis
Yeah.
wherever.
I
It's
never thought about
actually
that.
yeah, it's actually a common
Yeah.
question I get of, is it as effective through Zoom or
Mhm.
phone?
Right.
And, my answer is always yes. I'm sure you found the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
no, 100%. Actually, one of my people that work for me, she booked some sessions with me. The other day we jump on the phone and she starts talking and she's telling me about she wasn't we weren't intending to do one of our sessions, but she was telling me about something she was going on in her life. And I was like, all right, close your eyes, take a deep breath. We just went through
Hmm.
the whole process. And then by the end of it, we had a tremendous breakthrough on, she was self-sabotaging,
Hmm.
her success and everything. And so yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, I prefer to do Zoom. I don't really, if somebody signs up to do sessions with me, I'm going to do it, on Zoom if I want to see them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
you could do it phone. It doesn't matter. I
Hmm.
hypnotize people on my Instagram live. I can't even see them. I can't hear them. And I'll just walk them through certain steps depending on what it is.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it's effective either way.
Okay. So they're just throwing a question out at you and you're letting them know this is what I
Yeah,
would
like
do.
yesterday, I did a thing where I help people go to the root cause of like a limiting belief or a negative emotion, and I
Hmm.
just did it all on my live, and they weren't really asking questions. I was just like, "Hey guys, this is step one. Let's do it all
Hmm.
together." Okay, boom. Step two, boom, 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 and then by
Hmm.
the end of it, some people they didn't get to what they wanted because they need that one on one, but
Yeah.
many of them were like, "Oh, I was able to find this memory," and whatever. So it was good.
Cool. Cool. So what's your IG handle?
It's dom.the.hypnotist.
Okay.
And that's YouTube. Everything's just Dom the Hypnotist.
Okay, great. That'll be in the show notes for people too. Make it easy for you to find Dom
Cool.
and even go back and watch that if you like and see if you can get to your own root cause around
Yeah, yeah,
something.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So work, I know you've worked a lot with professional athletes. Tell me about some of that work. How do they find you?
Yeah, so I do jujitsu, not as much this past year because I've dealt with injuries and everything. But one of the
Okay.
reasons I actually moved to Las Vegas because I wanted to do this specific type of jujitsu. It's called no-gi jujitsu. And
Mm.
where I lived at the time, they didn't have a school that at least that I could find. So being that Las Vegas is the fight capital of the world, you have
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of UFC fighters here and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'll train with these guys and you just get to know people over time. They find out what you do. They're like, oh, I've always wanted to do that. So that's kind of how I got with the UFC fighters. And then with the NFL guys, I just started hitting people up on Instagram saying, hey, have you ever thought about this or that? And I've worked with a bunch of those guys as well. I worked with a couple of Olympic athletes. Those came through referrals from other people. One was the first Olympic gold medalist for women's wrestling. Her name's Helen
Ooh.
Maroulis. This is a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now my primary focus is I work with mostly business owners and salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have clients that are, the UFC fighters and NFL players we do consistent work
Mm-hmm.
because they got to be at their peak performance, right?
Mm-hmm. So that's centered around like peak performance. How do you move into that mind state? How do you overcome any limiting beliefs? Many of them still have limiting beliefs, even though they're performing at a professional level.
Yeah. It doesn't, everybody has the same stuff, just at higher, it's just at different level.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's interesting because, everything that we go through in our life is nothing is done by accident, right? It's, you ever heard the saying, Carl Jung was a guy that said it. He said, there's no such things as coincidence. If you stepped in a puddle, you better ponder why you stepped in that puddle. You heard that saying?
Yes. Yeah.
So I take that very literally. And so a lot of times the clients, even the athletes, when they come to me, they're dealing with something in their personal life or there's just chaos going on. And it's not really necessarily related to fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go into it and then we find out, like I have one of my football clients, he had this nagging back injury for like 3 years, had no idea why. And so we went back into what was happening. And what we discovered is that he entered the draft early. And I think it was his last year or the last game or the senior ball or the whatever bowl he was in. And he tweaked his back. Well, when we went back into his memory, his subconscious mind was like, hey, we messed up your back so that you wouldn't get severely injured in the game and then have to be out of the draft. So it was like a protection mechanism to make sure he got drafted. Because, if you play your last game, you blow your ACL.
Yeah. You're done.
You're screwed. So
yeah,
it wasn't that he faked it, but in a way, it's like his body just created this injury. When he first came to me, he was like, man, I got this nagging thing. And I said, you can heal your back with your mind. And he's like, no, he was all skeptical. I said, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And we went through, and then sure enough, he's like, after, 10 minutes of whatever, he just is like, what the hell? Oh my God, you're right. So yeah, it's pretty fascinating what our mind is capable of.
It is. And I do believe that whatever's going on with us physically, it's often our body trying to protect us from something. Absolutely. And often back, they say, especially lower back, is like money. It's related to money, which would fit too if he's like wanting to get into the draft and, like go to the NFL. And
speaking of money, I'll tell you a fascinating story. Actually, the same gentleman. So this was the NFL season of 2021. I'd been working with him starting like a little bit before preseason. And because we were doing the mental work and then he was doing all the physical work, about halfway through the season, he finally got his first start. So, we get together on Wednesday and he's like, Dom, I'm super nervous. So if there's anything that you can do, if there's any tricks up your sleeve, anything we haven't done yet, now's the time to do it. Right. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to record the plays of the other team. Because when you're playing in the NFL, you got to memorize the playbook of the next team coming up. Right.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to put it on a hypnosis recording and I'm going to loop it throughout the night. So you're going to listen to his 30-minute recording. You listen to it 16 times. You're going to hear it, hundreds of times with the plays. Right. And at the time I wasn't even sure if it was going to work. I didn't even really believe in sleep hypnosis back then because I hadn't tried it. And I just thought like, how is this going to help me if I'm sleeping? I don't even know what it's saying,
Yeah.
So I had him listen to it Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and then Sunday he went out and played. Well, he messaged me after the game and he goes, Dom, I have never been more in tune with what the other team was going to do. And he said, it's like I knew what they were going to do before they did it. He was happy because, it was his first start. And all of a sudden he's out there calling out the plays. Hey, he's taking the leadership role. So I thought, okay, well, thank God it worked. Number one. Number two, okay, maybe there is something to this whole sleep hypnosis thing.
Yeah.
So a few weeks went by, or maybe it was a few months, I don't remember, but I thought, I was like, you know what? I'm going to find a sleep hypnosis around creating abundance, right? Money. So I found this video and I started listening to it, and I was super skeptical if it was going to work or not. But it was a YouTube video. It had millions of views and thousands of comments. And all these comments were just like, oh my God, I started listening to this for a couple of days and I made 10 grand or I made 2 grand or 500 bucks, whatever, small amounts, big amounts. And at first I was thinking, this is probably a bunch of bots that this guy paid for, whatever. But I really went deep into it. I started looking at like people's comments. I would look at their profile and they'd have 10, 20, 30 thousand subscribers. They'd have a bunch of videos. I'm like, okay, these are not bots. These are real people.
Yeah.
So I started listening to this sleep. I figured, what I got to lose, I'm going to be sleeping anyway. So I might as well.
Yeah.
So I started listening to it on a Tuesday. And by Sunday, we had our biggest week ever by about 50% increase.
Whoa,
now,
that's a big increase.
That's a big increase, right? In 4 days. Yeah. So now this was great. The problem was, though, is that at the time I didn't have the 17 people on my team like I do now. Is literally the 3 of us. And 50% more clients is great, but that also comes with 50% more work, right?
It does. Yeah.
So I stopped listening. It was too powerful. I stopped listening to it. I'm like, okay, I gotta like
let me take a break.
I gotta take a break. So then I don't know, a few months or weeks went by, and I kept thinking about like, man, that was really powerful, but I don't want to work that much. Like I can't work that much. It's too much. So I figured, well, you know what? I'm a hypnotist. I'll just create my own sleep hypnosis and I'll adjust the wording so it's more around passive money, and it's not so like, yeah, large amounts of money, cool, but it also came with large amounts of work. So let's make it more passive.
Yeah.
So I create this recording. I put it on my YouTube. I put it on my Instagram. And within a couple of days, I was getting a ton of great feedback, right? Deals were closing that had been sitting around for people for months. Their calendars were filling up with appointments, all this great stuff. But then other people were saying that they couldn't understand the recording and it sounded distorted or like it was in a different language.
Really?
So so I'm thinking, maybe I messed something up on the back end when I created, this is my first time doing it, and it's 8 hours, right? So anyways,
it's 8 hours. So it loops.
Yeah, it's one affirmation and it loops. It loops for 8 hours. Yeah, it just loops. It's one sentence.
What's the one sentence?
It's large sums of passive money come to me easily and quickly from multiple sources on a consistent basis, and it's in the best good of all. I can keep, save, invest, or give the money away. Whatever I decide to do, I could do it happily. Fantastic. So actually, it's very similar to the one that I listened to, but I made some adjustments because, again, I didn't want it to just be a large amount of money with a large amount of work.
Yeah.
So a few months later, I had the idea. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to start giving all my clients this sleep hypnosis as part of their homework when they sign up, right? Like, we're going to go through this process. Here's part of your deal. So same thing. I gave it to people, and within a couple of days, people were like, oh my God, money's coming in. And I had one client text me and she goes, Dom, I think I'm going crazy. And I said, what's going on? And she goes, the first 3 or 4 days, I could hear the recording perfectly fine, but now it sounds distorted. It sounds like it's in a different language. So I said, I've heard this before. Yeah. Send me a screen recording. We'll figure out. So she screen recorded it, sent it to me, and, I could hear it perfectly fine. Well, about an hour goes by and she texts me. She's like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? And she goes, I showed your recording to my partner. We're in the same exact room, listening to the same exact thing. And she can hear it perfectly fine, but I can't understand it. It sounds like it's in a different language. So I'm thinking like, what the hell? What kind of sci-fi movie am I in right now? This is weird.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, let's talk about it on our next session. So week goes by, we jump on a call, and I gotta see it for myself. So I jump on Zoom, I share the
Mm-hmm.
screen, share the sound, hit the record or hit the play button, and sure enough, I can hear it as clear as day, and she can't understand a word. She
Huh.
can read the words on the screen, but it's
Yes.
not processing auditorily. I just went with intuitively what I thought was going on. And I figured, okay, she must have a lot of fear around like whatever this recording is. She must be blocked on it. So let's
Mm.
figure out what it is. So we went through each little segment, right? I told you the affirmation. So we went through like large sums of passive money. Okay. Why are you not letting me hear this? Easily and quickly. Why are you not letting me that? And the whole thing. And we discovered she had a bunch of different fears. So like she was afraid that when she became successful, her friends and family would be jealous and envious of her. She was
Mm-hmm.
afraid that when she became successful, she wouldn't be able to handle it like all at once, like a large amount. She was
Mm-hmm.
afraid she'd be successful, wouldn't be happy. So all these things. So one by one, we go through, we clear out each little fear and
Mm-hmm.
limiting belief. And then 45 minutes later, boom, I hit play and she can hear it as clear as day again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now it gets even crazier. So I
Yeah,
have a
let's hear
group
it.
that I do every Monday. There's like 50 plus people that go. And I share this with my group. And I said, hey guys, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And a couple other people are like, yeah, this same thing with me. So I go through and same exact thing, right? We clear it out. Well, then the week later, or the week after, um, I said, hey guys, I'm going to show you how to create your own affirmation
Mm-hmm.
and put it on loop throughout the night so you can listen to it, kind of like the sleep hypnosis. So there's this app, it's called the Parrot app. And basically, you can download it and you just talk into it. You say an affirmation and you hit
Mm-hmm.
play, and it'll play until your phone dies. It'll just loop over and over.
Okay.
So people created their own affirmations, their own words. I didn't help them create it, anything.
Mm-hmm.
They decided what it was. And within a few days after listening to it, people couldn't hear their own, they could not understand their own words, their own voice, their
Mm.
own language because they were blocked mentally from these things. So uh, it
Fascinating.
really,
I talk about this quite a bit in my practice, actually.
what's that?
Sometimes I'll have people say things under hypnosis, but then I tell them, but we're going to check that out when we're under hypnosis, whether you believe it 100%. Because if you
Mhm.
don't believe it 100%, you're going to block it.
Yeah, yeah,
So we're
yeah.
going to work with this until it is believable to you. It is a
Mhm.
stretch, but it's believable. So we're not
Right, right,
taking someone from, making 0 to making $1 million a year. It's not believable to them.
right, right,
We're going to take you to an amount that's like believable, that
right, right,
feels good, that feels comfortable.
right.
So, yeah. And I think that's often why affirmations don't work. And then people are like, oh, that doesn't work. Like, no, you got to
No,
do
it
something that
works.
really resonates with you, that's
Yeah, yeah,
believable
yeah.
to the conscious and the subconscious mind. And,
Right,
or
right.
if you need to clear something, you clear it. Yeah.
Yeah, we call it the sweet spot. So your sweet spot is like on a
Mm-hmm.
scale 1 to 10, your belief that you will hit that is like an 8. So there's a
Yeah.
little bit of doubt, but it's okay because that doubt is what's going to stretch you to get to that point. Because if it's a
Yeah. I
10, that
like
means
that.
it's too easy, right? If it's a
Mm-hmm.
10, then you're not stretching yourself. But if it's too much, if it's like a 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
Yeah.
1, it creates so much anxiety and it actually does the opposite effect. You push it away from you. So yeah, we like to keep everything within that sweet spot that, there's a little hesitation, but for the most part, it's like, I can do this. I just really got to
Yeah.
dial in.
Yeah. I think that's also where like something that is custom shines.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, this is custom to you versus just pulling something off the internet that you're like, what's going on here? I don't really believe this, or something like that. I mean, sometimes
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
can find stuff out there randomly that absolutely is going to work for them. They're going to believe it. But if they find that they're starting to have all kinds of doubts, it's like that is when I recommend, like, perhaps you work with someone individually to get something that's more custom, or to clear
Right.
those old beliefs that are holding you back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then not only that, on top of that, if you just pull up a random video on YouTube, you don't know what the other, how like experience that I could just say, all right, I just got my certification 3 days ago. Now I'm gonna put a video on YouTube and it's gonna be hypnosis. Like they could be messing up the language. They could just be, you know, like implanting the wrong things in your head. There's a lot that can go bad with that. I mean, it's not like it's permanent. You can always reverse it, but it's definitely one-on-one there's no comparison to like listening to a YouTube video, because it's not in your language. It's not tailored to you. It's not specific. So when you get that one-on-one, it's worth it, because, you know, it's just like anything. Like, look, if I want to learn how to do jujitsu, I could learn on YouTube, or I could go to the source of the guy and learn from him. Right. And he can tweak every little thing, and it's just going to be so much better, you know? So that's how I look at it.
Agreed. So once you created the personal affirmations for them, and then you had this percentage that couldn't understand it anymore. So then you worked with them to like clear what was going on in the group session.
No, one-on-one.
Oh, one-on-one. Okay.
And here's what's crazy. Like, I had a client the other day. He makes like maybe close to 600,000 a year or something like that. He's worth millions of dollars, you know, whatever. And he couldn't hear the recording either. Like I have a lot of clients that are multi-millionaires, and they'll start listening to it, and it distorts on them. And then we find out they believe like they don't deserve it, or everything has to be a struggle. It has to come like the easily and quickly. They're like, no, it has to be hard, and, you know, for it to be worth it, and things like that. And so it's not just like people that don't have money. It's everybody. And it's crazy. I don't know if I just call these people in, but it's a very high percentage of people that can't hear it. It's like, it's a lot. it's been hundreds of people now, you know?
Yeah.
So it's very weird. I don't know what it is.
I often work with like high net worth clients, and they struggle just like anyone else. And they actually have some struggles that other people don't, around money, around absolutely deserving, or some of the old beliefs, and you know, purpose, meaning, all kinds of stuff. And it's I think the fantasy, guilt, absolutely. Yes.
That's a big one, right?
Yeah, it is. Like the fantasy is that money is going to fix all of that for people. Yeah. And that's not really the truth of what happens, because we're human beings.
I had a gentleman I went to dinner with the other night. I was with a friend, and then, you know, we went to dinner with this guy. He owned the restaurant. And he's really successful, owns restaurants in all the most exotic places in the world, whatever. And at some point in the conversation, my buddy goes, "Hey man, let's just start working out again. You know, remember when we worked out together? You were super ripped and this and that." And he's like, "Dude, I can't. Like, my body's in pain all the time." And my buddy goes, he's like, "It's because your body's trying to tell you need to work out." And he goes, "No, man, I think my body's trying to tell me something else." So for me, that's like the alarm bells went off. I was like, "Oh shit, you know, what's going on?" So I asked him, I said, "Hey, do you want to get rid of your pain?" And he goes, "Well, yeah," kind of confused, like, "What are we about to do?" You know? So what we ended up discovering is that his entire family, his brother, his sister, his mom, his dad, they all had some type of autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis, cancer, or whatever, some issues. And he didn't have any problems. And not only did he not have any problems, he was wildly successful financially, and they weren't. Everybody in his family was just kind of poor. So subconsciously, he believed that he deserved to be in pain, because it was his way of staying connected to his family. Because he thought if he was super successful financially and his health was perfect, he can't connect with them. So to be able to stay connected and still feel that love, he's like, I got to feel the pain too, right? So in the matter of 10, 15 minutes, we went through and cleared it out, and his pain went from an 8 all the way down to a 2. And the only reason it didn't go to 0 is because, you know, it was like 11:30 at night by this time. And I was like, "Yo, let's do this another time. Let's finish the rest another time." But that goes to show you like how our subconscious mind will just self-sabotage us, and we don't even know it, you know? And we think like, "Oh, I'm born this way. Nope, nothing I can do. It's my genetics."
Like, it's so true. There's he used to be very well known. He passed away a couple of years ago, but Dabney Ewan, who was a medical doctor and hypnotist, okay? he did a lot of research around burns, actually. So he was in New Orleans, and the guys would come off the oil rigs with a very severe burn, actually. Emergency room would call him anytime, day or night. He'd run over, and he would do hypnosis with them. And his research showed like people could grow back hair where they shouldn't be able to grow back hair.
What's it? Is this guy still alive?
No.
I might
Yeah,
need to have, can you help me grow back my hair, bro?
Exactly. The pain levels would come down. They would heal faster, all this different stuff. But during his seminar, and I took this, I think I had been trained in hypnosis a couple of years by then, but I was attending the seminar because he was so well known and wise, honestly. And he always asks, is there anyone else in your family who has this similar problem? Or he'll ask, is there anyone else you know with this similar problem or something like that? And after I started adding that into my intake, and it's really fascinating. It does show like, oh, are you connecting with someone around this? And I work a lot with sleep. I'm an insomnia specialist. And sometimes the answer will be no. So it's not always a family connection. But other times it'll be like, oh, yeah, my mom, my grandma, we just all struggle with sleep. And it's like, wait a minute. People convince themselves it's all genetic.
Right.
So there's no solution, although they're in my office. So a part of them believes there's a solution. Right. So whether that's an office, virtual or real, in person, it's interesting because I do believe there are some genetics that go into things, but we also know there's epigenetics, so it can be changed. And not only that, you can change it for your future generation. So say you have children or you're going to have children someday, you can change it for them. So it's always like a really great question. Like, who else
that's good. I'm going to add that in there. What we ask is like, how does your mother relate to this? How does your father? But we could just ask, that's not the same question, right? It's a different question. Because you might not even think, somebody might say that, oh, my mother relates because of this, but they might not realize that their mother has the same issue, or even like a grandma or whatever. So I love that question. That's great.
Occasionally it's someone random. So they'll be like, not really. The only one I know with this problem like this is like a coworker that I had, something like that. So sometimes it's not a family member. It's like someone that was in their environment somewhere.
Right.
But it's always really interesting. It is. It really is. Yeah. To leave it
hypnosis
open.
It's changed my life so much in the way of how I see things and what I realize is really going on in the world. And it just makes you go, wow, this is so crazy, because a lot of the stuff we're taught about our body and how everything works is just complete and utter nonsense. A lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is like, oh, there's nothing you can do and you're screwed. And it's just, oh, you're not like, it's just genetic. You're just taught. No, it's not that. Like, you can actually do something about it,
You can. Yeah. And then I have a deeper level too of, all right, what kind of spiritual work is going on here? Maybe you needed this for a little bit to move through it, to clear it, or perhaps this is something you need going forward. Always allow for that. But I mean, I had a colleague who was on the podcast a couple of times, actually, who had MS, and no one would think that you could cure MS with hypnosis. And technically, we're not even allowed to say cure, quote unquote, right? But she will tell you that she cured her MS with hypnosis because it was tied to this limiting belief that she had.
Which was what? Do you remember?
It was that she must be ill and sick to get attention from her mother.
That's a very common one, right? To get attention.
Yes. And she was in a wheelchair. They had daily assistants coming in to help her. And you would never know that, like looking at her. When I met her, she was like a beautiful, functional, walking. You would never know
that she had been
in a wheelchair. Oh, yeah. She had already healed herself when I met her. And actually, I went to the hypnotherapist that she saw for some of my own subconscious beliefs to heal those. And then I became trained in that technique, which I call core healing, but it's really a regression technique to go back and see, okay, where is this belief tied to? And then healing that belief.
Isn't that so crazy? Like, how are we not taught this in middle school? You know, like,
yeah. Well, you know, I don't think our brains are quite developed enough for that, right?
I mean, they could at least like know what a limiting belief. I mean, we're 12. If they're showing freaking, think of the nonsense they push on kids now. It's like, oh my God.
Well, that's true.
They can learn some of this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, what is a limiting belief? Or like, why are you such an angry little, you know what? It's like, oh, it's because of this, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's see. I have a 21-year-old who's going to be 22 next month and a 17-year-old. And so we've talked about limiting beliefs their whole life and they still have them. So I think, okay, once that brain's developed at 25, we're going to get some good work done, you know?
Right. So you never worked with them on anything or?
No, I have. Oh, yeah. I mean, some less formally, let's say. The first time, my first, like, let's say, exposure to hypnosis was buying a CD. So it was back when we had CDs and used them a lot. But I bought a CD for my daughter who was around, I think she was around 6, 7, 8 around the time. And all of a sudden she developed this fear of heights. And so I was not actually trained in hypnosis at the time. I knew about it, but I wasn't actually even practicing as a psychotherapist at the time. I had a PhD, but I was home with my kids. So she must have been more like 6, let's say, because I went back to work when she was about 6.5 or so. So she developed this fear of heights. All of a sudden, she wouldn't climb up on any playground structures, nothing like that. And so I found Steve G. Jones, who is pretty, well known in the hypnosis community. And I found a recording of his. I ordered the CD. I said, it's subliminal. So it just sounded like ocean sounds for her. But I told her, we're going to work on this. And it's just going to sound like ocean sounds. And I'm going to put it on while you sleep. She said, okay. So it took, I don't know, she listened to that a couple of weeks. And then we went to a place that had, let's call it like a mini zip line. It was like a zip line for kids. It's like at the zoo. She went right up. She went across. She never had a problem after that. Yeah. So
subliminal, like just very subtle voice in the background, or
you couldn't hear it at all. It really sounded like ocean sounds.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. So after that, I ordered like, listen to your mother and get good grades and
did it work?
Good stuff. It did work. She's about to graduate from college. She's made 1 B ever. Like that's another problem though. She
like too dedicated or something.
Yeah. She's like, that's all driven by anxiety, mom. And I'm like, no, right.
She's not, it feels like she's not good enough or something. That's fine.
No,
there's like, always a yin to the yang.
There is.
You know what I mean?
Yes. But yeah, there was one problem she was working on where I said, you know what, let's go to my office to work on this. Because I have the whiteboard there and all this stuff. I actually have a chalkboard in my home, but it's like, let's go to my office. Yeah, there's a subtle component to that, right? Like, let's go somewhere formal and really work on this.
Right.
So in that aspect, yes. But generally, I send them to my mentor, actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah. That's cool.
I think that same child had a needle phobia that I sent her up there. I did the CBT too, cognitive behavioral therapy with like an anxiety specialist, that track. But then I sent her to hypnosis. It didn't work great for her, but then my mentor and I were actually in another seminar about 6 months later. The presenter, who was fantastic, Wendy, I don't remember her last name, Limke, I think. Maybe Wendy Limke, but she was talking about some early stuff that happened for her child around 2. And all of a sudden it hit me. I was like, oh my God, Marty, I forgot to tell you that Mia had heart surgery at 2. Like, like this is the root of this problem. Like I never revealed the root to you. Like,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So
wait, the heart issue was causing what? The anxiety?
Well, she has a needle phobia, and I think it really originated there when she was 2. When you can't understand what's going on and, why people are hurting you.
And she got over that?
somewhat, let's say.
Somewhat, yeah.
Now she can do it with support. So her boyfriend there, her dad there, something like that. Yeah, she
Oh,
can
okay.
do that.
Oh, that's cool.
When
Wow,
she
that's
needs to.
fascinating.
I mean, no one's signing up for like shots, or blood draws. No one's signing
Right,
up for
right.
that, right? But unless you're a phlebotomist, I guess you're signing up for it, right? But that's to
Yeah, that's
pull it out.
fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating. It really is. So often I think the problem will go back to early childhood, although in my practice, I've seen it in adolescence, early 20s. It just depends what happens to you. Sometimes if someone's older, they had something happen in their 20s or 30s that really shifted some kind of belief they had.
Right.
And
Yeah,
it's
a lot of
like,
times I find it is genetic, or, we go into memories of their parents, their grandparents, their great grandparents, and
mhm,
they go in and find out. It's interesting because I've had, people go and they're so blown away at it, like, how am I getting this memory of, whatever it may be? And then they go and ask their parents or their grandparents or whoever. And I've never, not one time, had somebody come back and say they were wrong. Never
really?
once. No, yeah, never. Every person that's ever verified,
Uh-huh.
it was spot on, like very, very
Mm.
detailed too, and in many cases. So I had a gentleman who went into this memory of his grandfather, like in the war and World War II. His
Mm-hmm.
grandfather passed away, and he ended up telling his dad about it. And his dad was like, okay. He's like, where were they? He's like, they were in a barn. What were they wearing? They were wearing coats. What was going on? He's like, I don't know, but I just had the sense that somebody was going to kill him. They was kill his grandpa. And what time of year was it? It was winter. And how many people were in the barn? 5. Like every little detail. And then his father ended up saying, well, yeah, everything that you just told me is exactly what happened. And, he told the whole story about his grandfather his grandfather got wounded by the Nazis, and he was in a hospital. The hospital got bombed. And while the hospital got bombed, everybody evacuated. And when his grandfather evacuated, he grabbed I don't know why, but maybe there was just laying around, but he grabbed a Nazi's jacket because it was the only thing he could find.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a Russian soldier wearing a Nazi's jacket. Well, the Russians ended up finding him, and they're like, hey, we're going to kill you. And he's like, no, 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 I'm a Russian. I'm a Russian. They're like, well, you're wearing a Nazi jacket.
Uh-huh.
So they put him in this barn, him and 4 other people, because they were going to execute him the next day because they wanted to
Whoa.
verify his story. And then they verified it was true. And obviously the guy lives because his grandson's alive. But
Uh-huh.
to the literally to the clothes they were wearing, that's how accurate it was with that genetic memory. So yeah, that's very fascinating.
Wow, that is. Yeah, yeah. Our minds are really capable of amazing things.
Yeah. And some people, they
Yeah.
just think it's fake, or, I don't know what they think, but yeah,
Mhm.
it's cool stuff once you dive into this and really understand like what's really going on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the fake question does come up. And what I say
The
is
what question?
the fake, like, is this fake? Is this real? Is it
Oh,
real
right,
or am I
right.
making it up?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, I mean, you can't go and verify, but let's say you can't do that. Then I always say, I'm not the lawyer here. We're not in a court of law. I don't need evidence.
Yeah,
What's
yeah, yeah.
really important to me is the perception that
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
forming around that memory. And also, it's like you're paying me a lot of money and it's time to be here. Like you'd have no motivation to make up
Hmm.
stuff.
Right, right,
But
right.
it doesn't really matter. We're working with what the mind's coming up with so
Right.
that we can heal that.
All that
So,
matters is how you feel after, right? Do we resolve it or not?
yeah, exactly. Right. How you move forward in your life. Yes. Yeah. Do you do past lives?
No, not I don't do regressions, but occasionally things will pop up that, hey, this started from a past life and we go down that path.
Yeah.
But I don't do past life regressions necessarily. I mean, I guess it is
Okay.
in a way, but not like the typical. Because people hit me up, oh, I want to do past life regression. I'm like, for what? And they're like, I just want to see that. I don't really do. But if
Hmm.
it's a problem that comes up and then we go into a past life and we work through it.
Spontaneously. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
how I started doing past life regression is like it would happen spontaneously in session. And then I'm like, I think I need some training around this. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
finally
yeah.
got it. And then it's like, oh yeah,
Right.
we can do past life if you want.
Yeah,
Or
totally.
what I say is BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing, which is really looking at, you can look at the future and seek guidance from your spiritual guides. So sometimes you go through the past as well during that one, but that one's really fascinating.
It's a hypnosis meditation?
They actually don't say it's a hypnosis technique.
Oh, okay.
Formally, the trainer who I guess named it, and it originates from Dolores Cannon.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of
all the alien stuff,
spiritual work. Yes.
Yeah, people always ask me, "Can you do the door?" I'm like, I don't know. But there's some clients where I'm like, "Hey, this guy's one of those people. He needs to go see a Dolores Cannon trainer because like this is one of those people right here."
Right, yeah. But it's really interesting, that one is too. But yeah, similar experiences just started coming up. I didn't even believe in it, quote unquote believe in it. I had a past life regression myself because I was looking for some answers around a relationship actually. And it did not go well. At the time I was not trained in hypnosis. So this was before I was trained. And I know now that there's no way the guy was yelling at me. I mean, he's a professional. It's just like under hypnosis, it felt like that, right?
Yeah.
So wow, I know that now, but at the time I was like, this is awful. Like, just stop yelling at me, you know? But and asking these questions, and it's like, I don't want to even answer that. Like, right. It's really interesting. But I had that one experience and just sort of left it alone for a long time. And then they begin to happen spontaneously. So I was like, yeah, I'll get some training on this one.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So we are coming to the end of our time here. Thank you so much for
thanks for having me.
Being here. Please tell people again how to find you and if they'd like to work with you, how to reach out.
Yeah, so you can go to, if you want to book a consultation, domthehypnotist.com/hypnosis/Zoom. So we do about a 45-minute deep dive and bring up a lot of stuff we've been talking about, bring to the surface, hey, why do I feel this way? What am I blocked here or whatever? So you can go there. Again, that's domthehypnotist.com/hypnosis/Zoom. And you can find me on social media, dom.the.hypnotist on Instagram, TikTok, and then my YouTube is Dom the Hypnotist. And you can send me a message there as well. If you have any questions, be happy to help you guys out with that.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much. And that will all be in the show notes for everybody so that it's easily found for you. So you can find Dom if you feel called to work with him. And have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Liz.
I hope you truly enjoyed today's episode. Remember that you can get free hypnosis downloads over at my website, drlizhypnosis.com, DRLIZ hypnosis.com. I work all over the world doing hypnosis. So if you're interested in working with me, please schedule a free consultation over at my website, and we'll see what your goals are and if I can be of service to you in helping you reach them. Finally, if you liked today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast or tell a friend. That way, more and more people learn about the power of hypnosis. All right, everyone, have a wonderful week. Peace. This podcast is not mental health treatment, nor should it replace mental health treatment. If you need therapy or hypnotherapy, please seek treatment from a trained professional.